I assume, I just want to clarify, I assume when you say feedback, you're really referencing, and maybe a combination of some things, but analytics and data is probably in that discussion, correct?
Yeah. Yep. It's
Okay.
the marketplace telling you what worked and what didn't. So it's the analytics, it's the scorekeeping, the measurement.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think, and I just wanted to highlight that. I wasn't, challenging you on that or anything. I just wanted to highlight that because I think there's too many people, and you mentioned it earlier on, when they have too many ideas, right? So they're pivoting all over the place. And I think that they're making a lot of these decisions, really fundamental or foundational decisions, and just going in a complete different direction off of mere speculation and not necessarily actually looking at and analyzing the data, whatever data they have available for whatever it is they're trying to make that decision. And you called it feedback. I would say as part of it too. It's purely a gut feeling, which I'm not dismissing the importance of that, but that should be, like, in my view, that should be the determining cherry on top of the decision. The core of that is like, okay, what feedback can we gather? What data can we gather to actually kind of validate those key assumptions that we have, or the gut feeling that we have?
Yeah, because if I'm constantly pivoting, think about that, right? Everything's sub-optimized.
Yes.
I never take anything to fruition, and then I wonder why I'm not great at anything, because you just you're like the plate spinner, right? You're just constantly running from one to another and another, and nothing's really optimized, nothing's really working because you're not giving it enough time and enough focus and enough energy.
Yeah, and if you have a team, oh my gosh, they're going to hate you as a leader. I remember sometimes, and I keep referring back to myself, but sometimes I would just say, this week we're going a different direction, and my team's like, we just started doing, we don't, and it's just, really, it's when when it's yourself, it's easier, but you also confuse your market too, because if you're like doing one thing and all of a sudden you're doing something else, you're kind of losing that traction of establishing who you are, the interpretation or the perception of who you are in the market. So I think a lot of people.
Yeah, you never get anything fully dialed in.
Yeah.
That's where the success is.
Yeah. Yeah, which I think goes to the point. I think people, I think patience, I think I said this recently, I think patience is one of the key words I think that's so undervalued in entrepreneurship, is the patience to actually see things through. The patience and persistency, I think, are the two things that I mentioned that were really undervalued in this whole entrepreneurship discussion.
It's kind of interesting because I'm really impatient in getting there.
Me too.
But I'm really focused on getting there, which creates a patience in, okay, if it didn't work this time,
interesting.
What did we learn? How do we adjust? I don't bail on it.
Yeah.
That makes so that's the patient part that you're talking about. You don't bail on it, but there's an impatience for, okay, let's get out there and do some stuff. Let's learn from it. No, it's kind of like software providers, right? They come out with version 1.0. They know it's flawed. They know there's a 2.0.
Yeah.
How do they make the adjustments for 2.0? It's based on the feedback they get from 1.0. And it's the same way with a plan. Your plan's flawed. Yeah. You got to get out there, execute it, pay attention to it, and take that feedback and then make smaller adjustments more frequently. That's how you accelerate the success.
Yeah, that's a really good determination. So thank you for providing that clarity. I think urgency, I would think it would kind of go in line with impatience. I think that's a really important thing to mention. Cool. So let's talk about I kind of referenced it earlier, but I wanted to make sure that we talk about this because you reference it later on in the book. Just about the friction that you might see with both yourself or with your team working towards 12-week year. I think a lot of people struggle with it, taking on new habits, building new habits. That's why so many people, I think it's, 83%, don't quote me specifically on that figure, of people give up on their New Year's resolutions by, I want to say early February.
Pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously we're not very good and probably for a variety of reasons. I think mainly expectations are a little bit off when it comes to actually setting goals and achieving them. So as that relates to adopting 12-week year, obviously we want people to get results from this. What are some of the biggest areas of friction that you see? Should people roll it out slowly and migrating to 12-week year structure, or should you just rip the Band-Aid and jump right into it? What have you seen to be most effective?
I don't know that there's one way that's most effective. We've seen people sort of ease into it. There's some recent studies though that show all in is a much better approach.
Okay.
And what the studies have found is that the pain of change isn't much greater when you're all in than a little bit in, but the results come on much quicker.
Interesting.
So, and applying the 12-week year is not difficult. There's really nothing painful about the 12-week year.
Yeah.
The pain is that if you're taking new ground, you're doing things you haven't done before. That's where the discomfort comes in. And that's probably the biggest stumbling block for folks. The people that drop out don't drop out because the 12-week year is complicated, or it's because they weren't willing to do the heavy lifting. And they were tired of looking at it day after day after day, week after week, and being reminded of the fact that they're choosing not to do that.
Yeah.
But that's the value of the 12-week year. It shines a light on what's working, shines a light on what's not working. Again, back to that vision though, if you don't have a compelling vision though, in the moment, it's really hard. Because in the moment, then all I experience is the pain of not doing the activity or the pain of doing the activity, but it's not connected to anything greater longer term, right? If I don't have this compelling vision of a future that's bigger than the present, then it's really hard. Because I think, Chris, we're all wired for comfort. Sure. We love it. We seek it. You think about that. That's the bugaboo. And so how do you get yourself to daily and weekly engage in the things that are uncomfortable? It's got to be connected to something you want that's bigger than what you currently have. And could be the impact, could be the financials, could be the time, whatever it is, but you've got to connect with that to the point where you can connect the dots between those daily actions and live in that life. And the more you can do that, you know, the easier it is.
All right. Did you like that clip? Remember, that's not the full interview. And you can watch the rest of that discussion right above my head. You can click right on the screen. Go ahead and start that now. But before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this. See you inside.